Hey, good morning. I hope wherever you are, it is as gorgeous as it is here. Um, so today, no separation, no self, not knowing. So I want to start today with one of my favorite lines from the Mumomkan, which is, let's start over. I was running late today. My last client went over. Let's come back. I need to take a breath. I don't know about you. Deep inhale. From the point of view of the world, I myself am the world. I remember when I first read that, it completely shifted my idea of my entire existence, of existence itself. Now, if I think about me from the point of view of myself, my pinky is me. There's no separation. Right? From the point of view of the world, I am the world. In some ways, my pinky is seemingly separate, but if I get a splinter here, my whole body will writhe with pain. I will feel it elsewhere, right? I don't know if you ever take the idea of a foot, right? There's soldiers or amputees who have had a foot or a limb removed. They still have this sense of a ghost limb, right? Still there, no separation. So could it be that from the point of view of the Earth, if you go to the International Space Station and look at the Earth, from the point of view of the Earth, you are the Earth. You're the whole thing. What happens to you affects everything. Right? Just play around with this. Just think about this idea. Could it be that you are the world? And if you are the world, who is everyone else? What is everyone else? What we're walking into today is the idea that nothing is separate. Now, there is a reality here that I am sitting here on this screen, and none of you have an idea of what my left hand, what my right hand is doing, right? So just over here, right? I know what my right hand's doing, but I don't know what your right hand is doing, right? There is a separation. Yet in the midst of that, there's no separation. How could that be? How could that possibly be? And this is how we tie back to last week's class on killing the Buddha, right? The killing of our ideas, our concepts, our notions, the killing off of the idea of the self. And this is important because it's when the idea of self dies that I can be born into. That's an annoying way to say it. Let me say it in a more colloquial way. When the idea of myself dies, I can I can begin to perceive that I am more than my limited self. As long as I'm in the box, the constraint, the limits of my ideas of self or other or of the world, I can't see beyond them. We don't see beyond our own thoughts. I don't know if I've done it in this class. I know I've done it with most of my clients. One of my favorite teachings also from this book, one of the commentaries from one of the teachers in here is, if you say the word fire, your mouth doesn't burn. And this is such an important teaching because it really points to the fact that words and all of our thoughts, all of our thinking are made of words. Words are not reality. I say the word fire, fire doesn't come out of my mouth, right? Because the word is not reality, right? When you think, you are thinking, as one of my clients said at one point, through a weak proxy for reality. All of our thoughts are weak proxies for reality. So this is why killing the Buddha is such a important concept, because when you kill the thing that you think is that important, I kill my concept of myself, that's Buddha. I kill the concept of this other person who I put so much importance on, or this job, or this home, or this life, or this dream. You kill it in order to get bigger than it. Because whatever the thought is, whatever each of you think of me right now, is a small, limited version of me. I contain all that and so much more. And this is important in a couple of ways, because a lot of times this can go all towards the positive. Oh, it's so much more than I think it is. Yes, it is. And that more includes everything, the good and the bad, right? The beautiful and the ugly, right? And we've talked about this in the past, how the idea of good creates bad and bad creates good, and how living into the more is the gateway to the more, and that's just the practice of not knowing, which is what the reading today is really speaking to. So today we're looking at chapter 29 of the second book of the Tao. Without the concept of another, there is no separate I. Without the sense of an I, nothing can be seen as other. And this has its utility in our actual sense of peace and groundedness and understanding. Because ultimately in reality, there is nothing but seeming loss and gain, life and death, time coming, time going, right? And all of those are constructs of the mind. When there's no concept of you, there can be no separate me. This is killing the Buddha. This is going beyond the limits of the mind. My little note for myself here is when you go beyond the limits of language, of thought, then the bonds, the limits of thought and language can loosen. This is just about going into the more that everything is. This is the practice of not knowing. When we realize that it's more than we think it is, we can begin to relax into the unknown. We can begin to release control, because all control is fake and an illusion. And as you practice not knowing, you're practicing this no separation. Because it's that simple. If I question my concept of another, and this reading is in the description below if you want to look at it. This is practicing not knowing. How do I practice not knowing? Question what I think I know. I think I know you. How do I so it says without the concept of another, without a concept of you, right? Well, then I just question what I think of you. If I don't have an idea of you, or if I can question my idea of you, then I am beginning to open into that there's no separate me. And then I reverse it. What are my thoughts of me? How do I sense myself? You know how before I talked about you feel your right hand, or you can't see what my right hand is doing? Most of the time, I don't know what my right hand is doing, right? Most of the time, we're not embodied in ourselves. So just as I question my idea of you, I then open up my sense of self. As I question my sense of self, I open up my idea of you. why are we doing this? Right? Why not have a very strong, why not be just stuck in myself? Why not just be all about myself and forget everything else, right? Or the contrary, which a lot of people go towards, why do I have to care about myself? It's all about everyone else. I need to care about all the other people. Why don't I need to forget myself and just care about them? Either way, you're in an extreme, and ultimately, you will find that you suffer. And we suffer because the reality is that we are the whole thing. We are nature. We are nature. If you look at the Earth from the International Space Station, everything on this planet comes from the Earth, returns to the Earth. It is the Earth. This is that no separation. When I think I'm separate from the whole, whether that's I have to ignore myself for the others or ignore others for myself, I miss the entirety that is. And I'm cutting myself off from myself. Because if you think about it from a scientific perspective, from the level of the quantum level, the level of the electron, the proton, from the level of the molecule, this is just all one thing. And when I cut myself off from you, I'm cutting myself off from myself. Conversely, if I cut myself off from myself, I'm cutting myself off from you. And this can feel very confusing until you realize it just takes curiosity, that not knowing, right? Realizing that my thoughts are not reality. Because when I realize that my thoughts aren't reality, I can open the door to not knowing. And as I kind of disjointedly said before, but when you practice not knowing, you are practicing no separation. Because it's the mind that separates. That's the mind's job, to create barriers and ideas and constructs. It helps to identify, tissue box, water. Like, I need to know the difference between these, because if you're sneezing, you need this, and if you're thirsty, you need that, and it's good to actually know the difference. There's a utility there, but it's knowing when the utility ends, because if you carry around that this is just a tissue, well, then you're also carrying around other ideas that are limiting you. And none of us want to be limited. We all have a sense that there's something more. And that's where this chapter then really gets cool, and I love it so much. So it starts off without the concept of another. There is no separate I. Without the sense of an I, there nothing can be seen as other. And then he kind of goes into this thing. There is some power that determines things, but I don't know what it is. It has no form or substance, acts without doing, keeps the whole universe in order, and seems to get along perfectly without me. And Stephen Mitchell's commentary here really pulls this into the utility of it. The power that determines, because remember how we said like the pinky, right, is me, like it's not separate. And then we said the world is me, I'm not separate, right? So whatever this power is that determines things is me. And yet it's not me. It's not this small Kirsten, right? It's not this. And it's nothing but this. And so he says, the power that determines things isn't me. Like, I'm not determining where the sun goes right now. I'm not even determining how my liver functions. And that's technically me, right? The power that's running all this, that runs my blood and the air and the rain, it's not me. And he says, the power that determines things isn't me, but it isn't anything else. How could it be? If you're stuck in the limits of the mind, and then this comes right back to not knowing, if you're stuck in the limits of a language-based mind that says fire, but that's a poor proxy for what fire is. The word fire is not fire. If you're stuck in the limits of the mind, this makes no sense. It makes no sense. I don't know if you've seen the comedian Pete Holmes. He does a great little bit on this. And he's a practicing Zen Buddhist, so that always makes me happy. He has this whole bit on, it makes no sense. He says effing sense, right? It's like, it makes no effing sense. We're molecules. This makes no sense. It does make no sense, right? He does what I do, but in a much funnier version. I recommend him highly, right? It makes no sense because sense is made from this small, limited mind. The mind is limited. It's limited by language. If you speak more than one language, you know that even the same color is seen differently in different languages. You try the word sad in 4 different languages, and it has a totally different feeling to it. Because the word is not reality, but the word can influence how we perceive reality. Let me say that again. The word is never reality, yet the word can influence how we perceive reality. And we can be blinded by the words. We can be blinded by the ideas. We can be limited and stuck by the words. To get unstuck just takes opening the door to it's not what the word says. It's never what I think it is. It's not what I think it is. It's so much more than I can perceive. And when you practice not thinking, when you practice being present in the full body that you are, you feel it. This is like all these wisdom teachers, right? I don't care what poor religious proxy that they use, Christian spirituals, Kabbalah, Sufism, voodoo, whatever. When you actually quiet the mind and feel with the whole body, because when the mind is thinking, you're not in your body. You kind of get cut off from the neck up. But when you quiet the mind and feel the body, you actually can feel it. You can feel a connection to the whole. For me, this took nearly 17 years of pretty intense practice to actually have those moments of like, I feel this whole thing. I really feel it. And then now the more I've been practicing that, the more I feel it more and more often. To get there just takes questioning what you think you know. Getting curious. That's all it takes. Right? And so to that point, the power that determines all of this, and I would even ask the question, is anything determined? Or is it just moving? But the power that organizes this movement isn't me, but it isn't anything else. Realizing this is freedom. It has nothing to do with the credos of religion, those 100-piece pa bands meant to drown out the sounds of doubt. What keeps the whole universe in order speaks with the still, small voice of silence. Only the don't know mind can hear it. Okay? So I love how he pulls this together. It's a little subtle. Religion, like that, those pa bands, like beating along of I know, this is God, this is right, this is wrong, this is moral, this is immoral, this is good, this is evil. Pa bands. We don't know. Right? That's knowing. This is for me why I'm a-religious, right? Like why I like Zen in particular and Buddhism, where it's like kill the Buddha, don't know the Buddha, don't know what this is, right? And that's where the freedom is. The thing is that you lack any semblance of control then. You lack any sense of if something's right or wrong. The thing is it's not about being oblivious, though. It's actually the opposite. You are so acutely aware, yet you're not attached. You are deeply aware and deeply curious. This is not someone driven by the mind or the heart, by some desire or hatred. or idea of success or failure. No, this is deeply grounded, deeply present, here and now, awake, but not knowing, not stuck in the mind. That's that still small voice that you listen to. And to me, that voice comes from here. Yeah. Only the don't know mind can hear it, because if you're in that pa band of this is right and this is wrong, this person is good and this one's evil, that's drowning out the doubt. And doubt is key. Doubt is not knowing. This isn't skepticism. Skepticism still has a sense of, it's like, I don't know. It's got a little hubris to it, though. Like, oh, but there's something that I know better, right? Or something else knows better. This is just full not knowing. I don't know. It's not wrong. It's not right. Skepticism says, I don't think that that's right. Doubt is, there is no right. I really don't know what is or isn't. But you can feel it when you're that awake and not in the mind's delusionary diatribes, right? And to get into that presence just takes practice. And that's what we do on Thursdays. Right? We practice sitting in the silence. That's what I have for today. I apologize, I was a little disjointed at first. I was running very late. Had a couple of tech things happening, setting myself up. So it's a good example of how important presence is. Like, where you start is how things begin, right? Like, how I started was disjointed and running late. And you guys felt that. And I think it's a good thing that you can feel it. I think it's a good thing to feel it from someone who's teaching this. To really realize, I think it's really important to realize, to know that no one knows this because it's unknown. No one gets it right. In fact, the getting of it wrong, the more I practice and the more I open up, and I'm like, ooh, like, am I aware? Fine. I'm aware that I'm disjointed. I'm aware that I'm not grounded and prepared the way I want to be. I was prepared. I prepared the class, but I kind of ran from one thing to the next, and it took me a few minutes to move in. When you realize there's no perfect to get to, when you see someone who's studied this and practiced and lived it for, God, almost 30 years now, be disjointed. I hope that gives you the space to be disjointed as well. Because there's no jointed or disjointed. It just is. And that's the practice. Can you be with reality as it is? Because when you are with reality, with yourself, with the world, with others, as it is, not as you think it should, could, or would be, but in reality now, without your ideas of should, could, or would, getting in the way of your intimacy with this moment, that's when suffering is gone. Doesn't mean that you might not be crying in that moment or having your heart broken, but you're aware and connected. And there's a line between pain and suffering, right? And you get to see through that line. That's what I have for you guys for today. Thank you for your patience, especially in the beginning as I got myself settled and present again. Started disjointed and did pretty good. Thank you, guys. I will see you next week. We're gonna work on the Dogen quote next week that ties last week and this week together. Hope you guys have a great week, and I hope to see you when we actually practice on Thursday. Thanks.